Thank you for joining us tonight, and we requested this workshop following the previous meeting, and the purpose was for the board to get a better understanding of the application and listen to the applicant's response to the concerns and questions of the board, and we'll have it very informal interaction. We'll have the larger presentation during the public meeting that starts at 6:30. So this is relatively informal, and probably what we can do is ask Ms. Cook to come and just bring us up to speed on where we left off, and then we can have the applicant address the questions the board has. And you have much more time during the public meetings. We only have about 45 minutes. And then we'll have the larger meeting, which you can go as long as you like. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll have to get snacks, too. Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, Commissioners. I think what I'll do is just go over what we discussed at the last meeting and some of the items that the Planning Commission had asked for additional detail that the applicant provided. And then you can ask me questions, and of course they're here if you want to ask them questions, and we can talk about any other topics as part of this application. So at the July 7th meeting, there were a couple of details that the Commission wanted to see. Those included looking at the open space calculations. They did submit a new open space calculation sheet. And that number did change, just to let you know that the previous number was 18 acres, and that number did change to 19.1. So there were some questions about how it was calculated, if they were calculating all of the open space, civic space, and amenity space. So they did update that plan. And also to bring your attention to, they had previously 11.4 acres of civic space, and now that is changed to 11.9. They had 6.6 acres of amenity space, and that's been changed to 7.2 acres. So there were some spaces that weren't being counted. Some of those are balcony spaces, because we do have the requirement for balconies for multifamily, so they've added and corrected those numbers, and they're reflected in the new recommended conditions. There are also some questions about the streetscape and the bicycle lanes. They did give a detail for what that would look like. That was included in the packet, so they do have a reduction in the existing pavement in order to create that bike lane. They show the 10-foot lane, which is a reduction of the current width, 9-foot and a 10-foot lane, and then the bike lane that would be created is 10 feet in width. It includes the 2-foot separation delineator, which would have a vertical separations that the staff would have to approve. And they also included that within their open space calculation, because it does go from North Point Drive all the way to the North Point Center East entrance. And that would be created here, half of that ring road. They also provided some details on the Stormwater Park. That was another request from the Planning Commission. And this may look familiar to some of you, because this is basically what was previously submitted as part of the Brookfield submittal and the public hearing. And just to remind you, the requirement is for the North Detention Park to be completed, and that is, let's see, let me get the acreage for you, 1.47 acres. And that's prior to a CO for the first for rent building. And then the second piece, a little bit smaller, is the 1.23 acre section. And that is as part of phase, now I've lost that. The northern half, the track will be dedicated to the city, And remaining portion of the stormwater pond improved prior to a CO for the second, for rent building. So more details were provided for what they were going to construct within these two sections. And I'll tell you, the reason some of this is kind of faded out, you can see all of this area that's faded out. This has a different property owner. The property owner for this section is actually Acesso. They're the owners of the office buildings that are located to the west of the site. So they're not although they're including an overall master plan for what could be developed at this park, those areas are faded out because they don't maintain the ownership. And the last thing that I was going to present as part of the workshop that the Commission had asked for were the changes to, what changes were proposed to the recommended conditions. So previously there were a lot of different red lines, and then now there is just the red line for the request for Phase 3. And I'll go ahead and show you what we changed. This will be shown in green, so you just have an idea of what was changed during the time frame within the last month. And those are highlighted in green. So we just changed the date to reflect the new plans. And then we also changed 3, the 6,000 square foot food hall. So previously that was a higher number for the food hall. So that was reduced to the 6,000 square feet. On the hotel, we clarified that it's just one freestanding building. We accepted their changes at the bottom of that condition, which say commercial or office square footage may be exchanged for up to an additional 150 hotel rooms at the rate of 800 square feet per room, limited to one freestanding building. We were okay with adding that language where you could trade the space for additional hotel rooms, but we weren't in agreement with more than one hotel, which they weren't asking for. So this was just clarification that even if the hotel grows, it's still just one hotel building. So all of these at the previous meeting were shown in red, and now you will not see any of the red. For D, for the for rent, this is the for rent for Phase 2. We do have the 330 for rent, and we changed the requirement for the market grocery to be a minimum of square footage of 3,500 square feet, and that would actually meet our code requirements. So we accepted the 3,500 square feet. They were in agreement with that. Also added is if a grocery market is developed within 500 feet of the property, then this shall satisfy the condition. Over the last couple of years, when we've been talking to different developers about bringing in grocery stores, many of them have said, we've tried to bring them in. They don't want to be part of the mall mixed use, but they are very interested, if there's more density, people living in the area, to maybe look at one of the out parcels. If you think about the Thomasville Furniture, the Total Wine Store that's empty. So there's some better visible properties that you could accommodate a 14,000 to 15,000 square foot grocer. A lot of these specialty groceries, that's the size of those. Of course, it'd be great. You know, there's a few in mind that we would love to attract to this area, and some of them are smaller that could fit on those out parcels. Some of the other changes, the changes to number 8, we just changed that to meet the increase in the civic space as well as the amenity space. And then number 9, added pedestrian trail and bike lanes shall be improved as depicted on Exhibit D. And then put the bike lane shall include a minimum 10-foot asphalt path, and pedestrian trail shall include a minimum 4-foot crushed stone path, landscaping, and lighting. So it's just clarifying what that would include as part of that ring road work. Number 10, just clarify this work, the work for the MARTA bus shelters, that it's required. that the work shall be eligible for credit against developer transportation impact fees. And of course, this would be only if it's not covered by the CID's program. They have a program where they help to fund, I believe it's up to $45,000 for a bus shelter, so it can exceed those prices, those costs. And then 15, we just clarified, put in the northern half of the Stormwater Park shall be improved prior to a CO. That was always the intent, so this was just clarifying that condition. And then, let's see. We also added who's responsible once that stormwater pond is built. And you can see it's been added. The city shall be responsible for the structural repairs upon dedication. The developer shall be responsible for daily maintenance. Developer and other pond owner shall remain solely and exclusively responsible for the maintenance of the detention ponds and waterways which feed it. The cost of the construction of such improvements shall be eligible for a credit against park impact fees. And then obviously, if the city has to go out there and clean it every day and you have a lot of people there, that's not something you want to probably depend on the city's maintenance to be able to pick that up. They're the ones that are going to have the residents, the customers there. So giving that daily maintenance to them is just going to be better to keep that at the quality it should be kept at. And then 28, we just added developers' financial responsibility for off-site improvements, and Stormwater Park improvements shall not exceed its impact fees. We really couldn't have done that legally, but they wanted to put this in here that they don't have to exceed the impact fee credits that they would have been given. We wouldn't have been able to require that anyway, but we understand that they just wanted clarification, so we're okay with that. So I think the work that we had over the last month, especially with getting together with the conditions, has been something that's been very useful and productive. Again, the only red line that they're going to present to you will be in regards to D, which is the 3D, which we'll let them talk about during the public hearing. But if you have any questions or anything specific for me, I'm glad to answer those. And then, of course, the applicants here that can provide additional detail on any of these items that you may want to see.
Okay. The board have questions for Ms. Cook?
Kathy, I'd like to, I think we talked briefly, I know this is deep details, but I think we talked about the new branding, signage, kind of all the north point around all the entry points.
Yes.
I know it's, nothing you want to do. I wouldn't want to put a new sign up until I finish phase one. But at the end of phase one, like CO, is that something maybe we should consider adding in? I think you have those pieces and let them have the freedom to do whatever branding they want, but just a time that will be installed.
Yeah, I forgot to bring that up. They did provide some pictures of the existing entries. So of course this is the one at North Point Drive. You can see it here, and then it's the sign at Haynes Bridge. Been there for many years. I think they updated them, of course, since the beginning of the mall. And the other location that they provided the pictures for, the North Point Mall, North Point Center East. And they also provided some different concepts of what that signage replacement could look like. And staff was in favor of the styles that they're showing. We actually put together a North Point overlay concepts, and part of the concepts within that North Point overlay recommend that they use the metal, the Corten steel. And if you've been out there recently, Chick-fil-A used that for their new signage, and that's what you see here is that steel that they've shown in both of these pictures. So that's something that we are seeing throughout the North Point area, and it's part of the overlay. So we are in favor with the styles that we're showing. And then, of course, North Point, more contemporary with the architecture. So while this may not be something you would see in downtown or other areas, it certainly is part of that North Point overlay. And that could certainly be added, and maybe the applicant can talk about when they're planning on making those changes. And of course, it would have to go through the design review board process, but maybe they could add to that if the board would like to hear from them on that.
So I guess, yeah, just my question is, does staff kind of control that when that would kind of be implemented into the project with the applicant? Or would you like us to put a condition in and add that you have to do it by CO of phase one? I guess that's just what's your preference?
I'd like probably to hear from them as to when they're planning on doing that. You could certainly add a CO. Add a requirement. I think it's important to the branding and for people to see that something different's happening. I would hope that they would want to do that as part of that phase one. And certainly, it would be my recommendation that it be part of that phase one. It's important for people to see that something's changed at the mall.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question, Kathy. On the open space calculation, I know that came up last month, but could you just net it out for us? Where did the final number come in relative to this minimum of 19.11 acres?
A lot of the area was just because of, they hadn't counted all of the, on the amenity space, they didn't have the balconies counted. So with our requirements, with the number of balconies, and you can count those spaces, it really added to that number for the amenity space. And I'd probably have to let them speak as to the other areas that were added.
But you're comfortable they're exceeding the base requirement?
Oh, yes.
Just want to clarify that.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a quick question on the food hall went down from, I think, 15,000 square feet to
Yeah.
6,000. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that was something that they had requested for us to reduce that number. We looked at other food halls, and they had said that as part of that first phase, that 6,000 is a more appropriate number for the number of restaurants that they would be able to attract. And so we were fine after looking at other comparisons of changing that number.
So that they probably will still go up to 15?
Probably.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep, it's just that first part, how many can you attract, how much space can you fill? And you certainly don't want to look empty in the space.
You have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kathy, one of the additions that we saw from the applicant for this evening was a significant amount of additional conceptual renderings of the interior of the mall, which I personally was really glad to see. I thought that was a little, it wasn't really touched on too much in our last meeting. And I think, if I remember correctly, Exhibit H, I think, is what contains a lot of the renderings. And when I look at condition number 3D, where it talks about what's going to be completed in phase one, excuse me, the way it reads currently is a CO shall not be issued for phase one for rent until the retail plaza and Pocket Park Retail Square, remaining interior mall renovations, and so forth. And so it's safe to say that what we saw in those renderings for the interior will be done in phase one.
Yes, and probably, to clarify that, you could add as depicted in Exhibit H.
Okay.
Right after interior mall renovations, and just put in parentheses, as depicted.
In Exhibit H?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and that way it's
Clear?
clear.
Okay. And another question sort of along those lines is I refer to it as the ring road, the pedestrian
yes.
and bike lanes. Are we expecting that to be delivered in phase one as well? Because I don't see any kind of timeline associated with condition 9 that speaks to that.
My recommendation would be for Phase 2, rental shall not be issued until pedestrian trail and bike lanes and the market grocery at that time. But we didn't add that in there. But my recommendation would be a CO for Phase 2 rental would not be issued until pedestrian trail and bike lanes and the market grocery are complete.
I see, okay. So that's, in your discussions with the applicant, that was the intention with that? That would be a Phase 2?
Correct.
Okay, great. And then just one more question along the open space. If you could put the rendering back up for the Stormwater Park.
Yes.
The 10-foot wide concrete trail that's called out there
Here?
on the northern section, that's part of Phase 1, is that correct?
It is part of Phase 1, but it doesn't connect.
Right.
So you don't have those connections, but that is part of that first phase.
Okay. And we've seen that in when we've done the Alpha Loop and trails like that, where we've got it sort of
Missing.
ends until the next development is coming forward.
Yeah, and we would work pretty hard to, once this, if this is approved and they get started, we're going to try, staff is to go to Assessor, try to work out where we can get this property, dedicated in order to make that connection. And there's other grant opportunities or other opportunities that we would try to apply for in order to try to make this connection work through here.
Good, okay. Thank you.
I would like to, and we can ask a question, to allow the applicant some time, because I know we are constrained time-wise, and we have a whole public meeting to discuss all this. What I like to do is to allow the applicant, because they did request individual meetings, and I thought probably a workshop might be better, so anybody in the public can participate. So let's hear what they wanted to discuss with us, and we'll have much, much more time to drill down into this during the public meeting, unless anybody has a very pressing question. I hear none. All right.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Johnson with Trademark Property Company. First of all, thank you for taking time for a workshop so we can get into some of the details and talk about some of the questions that you all have. So I thought maybe I'd start by addressing some of the questions that you asked of Kathy, and I can give you a little feedback. So I'm going to start here and see if I can do this correctly. Oh, is Eric switching it over? Okay. All right, now we're good. Perfect. There we go. So I'm going to start with signage. I think that was the first question. So as it relates to, so I apologize for kind of moving around here, but as it relates to the existing signage and when we would actually install new sort of well-branded signage that really aligns with the North Point overlay, our goal is certainly to do that in the first phase. We are already looking at some preliminary designs and even upgrading the existing North Point signage in what I'd call sort of a temporary basis with new branding as the project is, hopefully ultimately approved and we start to move forward. So we can introduce brand early as we work through final signage that will be our new, call it district signage on both North Point Drive and then again over by Acesso. So that would be an early phase installation of that, probably well ahead of a CO of the first phase. Any questions or thoughts on that?
I have one question.
Sure.
I love that idea. I think that's great, and it really helps, introduce the new brand. So is the road completely closed on Haynesbridge while you're doing?
No. The intention on, let me get to that, go back to that. So right there, North Point Drive would remain open at all times, as well as the ring road, call it, to the north. We would keep the ring road open as well as North Point Drive.
Haynesbridge, the
Yeah.
entrance off of Haynesbridge.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry,
I
yes.
got you. Okay.
That would remain open at all times to customers, et cetera.
Okay, all right, perfect. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, Anything else on signage? All right. So next question was, Monica, help me just on the list.
I think there were questions about what goes to stormwater park.
Yeah, let's go to the Stormwater Park. That's a great place to go. Am I going the right way? Sorry, guys. I think there it is. One more, there, okay. So on the Stormwater Park, as Kathy mentioned, the phasing and timing of that. Our intent with that is, to install the 10-foot sidewalks on both sides, as well as the overlook in the north detention, what I call around the existing detention park, trail, as well as other details that we're working on.
And the 10-foot wide?
Yes, and that 10-foot wide strip, for sure. Internal as well as along, call it the former ring road. And then we do have some work along North Point Drive, where we'll be adding 10-foot sidewalks as well.
And Jeff, did you say on both sides of North Point Drive?
Correct. So I'll flip to that. Sorry, this is not wanting to. There. That is the connector. Sorry. This is not.
So yeah, on North Point Drive, where
If you can come closer so it can be picked up by the...
I'm having difficulty with this. Can we?
So on North Point Drive along the Sonesta Suites, we would be improving the sidewalk there, 10 foot, and then on the side on the Stormwater Park. So on north and south side.
That's right.
And then the 10 foot along where the townhomes are.
Correct.
So, can I ask a question?
Yes.
While we're on this topic? So, I listened to the last meeting and, read those sets of packets for each meeting. One of the things I'm unclear with, that intersection you've got highlighted with the red or enhanced crosswalk. Currently, there's no light at the intersection of the Ring Road and Northwest, the typical mall going open
Right.
where everything stops. What is the plan moving forward for this project with that? Because I would think we'd want to, are we going to put lights in?
I would tell you at this point, we have not studied putting in
That's down the
a traffic signal there, and I'd probably defer on that particular topic.
It's just one of those things, I see a lot of crosswalks, and that is a heavily traveled,
Yes.
No, it's the typical mall where from North Point Drive, it's drive-in and stops on the interior side, not the
That's right,
So
exactly.
it's just, that's something I hope somebody looks at down the road. Yeah.
Sure.
Because I think if you add this much traffic and at that intersection, that's going to be a primary artery. With it, all the pedestrians that we're talking about is of note.
I think that's a good one.
Definitely noted.
I couldn't tell from the drawings.
Yes, exactly.
It's hard.
We'll go back to the park. So I think Kathy, she described our revised concept for the streetscape along North Point Circle. So the 3 lanes of traffic, just to maintain that for anchor control and just better flow. And then being able to, I think at first we had a one-way bicycle. So we increased it to be able to do 2-way. And so that's kind of our new condition there. And then our plan is to highlight at the major intersections. Oh, yeah, it's a little delayed. With green paint and delineators and other graphics along the pedestrian trail itself.
There it is.
Here. So we added more detail there.
So, Monica, can you go back to the slide before?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and I missed this when I was looking at it the first time, and I think it's maybe hard for everybody to see, but when I was speaking with Michael when I was speaking with Michael about this, what I didn't understand, and I think is great, is that in addition to the 2-foot separator, which will have the bollards, there's also in the bottom right of that diagram a green, some sort of another buffer, and then a pedestrian trail there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I was focused on the bike lane and the space in between the cars and the bikes, but I didn't understand that there was also a pedestrian path there with also a separation, so I think that's terrific, thank you.
So I'll go to the interior mall. So yeah, we included additional images of the interior mall renovation. So yes, our intent is definitely that would be done with phase one for relocating all these tenants. We don't want to relocate them and then tear up the mall in front of them, so definitely coordinating that so when they get over there, so that's part of our plan to happen soon.
And we also think that it's really vital for the mall and the entire project to maintain a quality that sort of matches one another. So the new mixed-use project is of a high quality, and we want the mall to also have sort of a modern, eclectic feel that really kind of almost tears down the inside and outside portion of that mall. So it feels equally as good inside as it does outside, pulling green in and really trying to connect the two projects, and so it really feels like an indoor-outdoor mixed-use experience.
So just out of curiosity, that you were talking about moving around the tenants, and just, I know it's your business plan, not really our discussion, but just out of curiosity, are you going to move tenants like out of one wing and then completely renovate that wing in the mall, and then kind of bring them back in and then kind of flip over? Is it what's the plan for the interior?
Honestly, a work in progress, and the exact, call it construction plan, we're not there yet, but clearly the intent is we've already started some upgrades to the mall that are light touches, just in the spirit of showing change. And we feel like it's important to get the interior of the mall done in concert with moving tenants.
That's great.
And Terry will show some of those images in the.
I can tell you from an opinion, in my opinion, over 30 years, there hasn't been a renovation of this mall, and this is the core asset, and I think just that interior, I think we're all celebrating that and support you guys on that. I think it'll be an incredible destination going forward.
A quick question on the whole experience with regard to those interior mall renovations, and tell me if, I've got something in my head, but I haven't heard you explicitly say it, so I want to see if we're aligned or not. When this entire mixed-use development is done, and I'm walking from the new portion of it to the renovated mall portion of it, and let's say somebody like me is doing that, who's lived here since before the mall was built, am I going to be even thinking of the old mall when I walk into the renovated Macy's or the renovated Dillard's, or is it going to feel almost entirely like a new experience to me?
From the perspective of the mall and the mall concourse, that will have a totally new feel. You won't recognize.
It's almost like I'm not going to feel like I'm walking into the Macy's of 1995, right? I'm not even going to think of the old mall. I'm going to think I'm in almost an entirely new environment. Is that, that's the vision? That's the goal?
That is the vision, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. To be clear,
Yes.
we don't control what's inside of Macy's.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, right,
Those
right.
things we can't.
Right.
So just, because the way you asked your question, inside the mall, you won't recognize it. When you are, and y'all are stealing my thunder because I'm going to be presenting you all the fun stuff later.
Okay.
But inside Macy's, inside Dillard, we don't control that.
Right, fair.
Inside the mall and going from the new green to the new entrance into the mall, you won't know you're in the same place you were in 30.
That's what I'm looking for. Okay.
You will not,
Thank you.
for sure. And that's actually in my presentation. I have those examples.
All right, we look forward to it.
I think that's going to be a key part of tonight, is really kind of listening to you, get, like we were talking about before, that experience of, just how, the migratory traffic patterns, how you're coming into this space, where the experience is, how can people park very easily, how can they get out and enjoy that brewery space, you're kind of talking about that newer kind of element, and how does that connect into the other kind of core asset. And I think that's a lot of what tonight is, and then we'll kind of have probably a deeper, I imagine, a deeper conversation on the halo, what's around the core.
You bet, absolutely. So we put together a high-level schedule just to talk about overall project schedule and timing. And generally, if you just kind of take a step back, what this represents is 6 years after the zoning is potentially approved at council, we would be starting what we're proposing to be our third phase of multifamily. So from, call it, a few weeks from now, when we have council, 6 years from that date, we would be starting our proposed third phase of multifamily.
So you might start from, that's a really good kind of point of the sequential progress that you're going to have. We went through this the last meeting. Do you mind kind of recapturing that? Because I think I was a little off then, because I thought it was like about 3 years, 3.5 years before you deliver phase one. Then you have like 12-month gap, like year 5, you start into phase 2. Take another 2 years, you're out about 7 years before,
Yeah.
before.
So if we just walking through this, if we look at phase 1, multifamily design, permit, and construction, the diamond, the dark diamond on that bar represents the start of construction. And so I apologize, my eyes are not what they used to be, but that's Q3.
Eric, you can't blow that up for us?
Does anybody got any readers?
Everybody's got the same issue? Good, okay. So generally speaking, we'd be starting phase 1, multifamily. Again, that would be about Q3 of '24, completing, thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is
Q1 of 26,
of completion.
of completion.
Completion of phase 1 would be Q1 of '26.
Okay, so go back. So you're demoing the end of 23.
Correct.
Okay.
But we're starting design for phase 1 at the beginning of next year. We have to have design done for permitting and things like that. So really, we wouldn't start construction going vertical until Q3 of '24.
Correct.
After site work, because we're demoing and doing site work for the entire site up front.
And then while you're there, just help me out. At the end of phase 2, that 6 years from August is what Q and year? At the end of phase 2?
Somebody is helping us here address that, so thank you.
Q2
Doing
20.
that, I appreciate it very much.
The Q3 28.
So phase 2,
Yeah, phase 2 would start construction
Construction
Q4 '26.
correct.
And so at the beginning, we're starting design at the end of '25.
And ending at target end is Q2 28, right?
Right.
When you deliver all of your units.
Got it.
And then phase 3 would start,
So we would start design for phase 3 in Q3 of '27. And then what Kathy mentioned about the conditions and what we would be proposing is that we would start construction of phase 3 of multifamily or for the for-rent product within 6 years of kind of this August 15th council day. And if not, it would revert to for-sale product is what we have in our proposal.
Let me suggest even for the council meeting, if you could just show the various phases on a column showing the dates, estimated dates. We know this is a planning level schedule, and you can play around with it. So that would be much easier to present than the,
thank you.
We can do that.
the start and finish.
So in addition to the condition of starting by August 15 of 2028 construction or it reverts to for sale, we'd also be committing to or propose in our red line that we would do 60,000 square foot of commercial and we'd have the site work complete for townhomes before we'd be eligible for that.
Okay.
Oh, and then I think the last question we had in a table we provided. Last page. Was regarding mix of uses and how we kind of arrived at our proposed use for residential.
Exactly. And I think maybe a question was asked about what are other mall redevelopments. What's going on out there with other mall redevelopments and the number of residential units? So we went and studied and found 20 projects in various places of the country where multifamily has been either proposed or is actually under construction. And we found about 20, and it's a pretty broad range of number of units, but I think what jumped out to us, not only from a total number of units, but on a per acre basis, our proposal is the second, what I'd call really the second lowest. Redlands Mall is showing 700 units over 15 years. They well may have some zoning and entitlements and getting building permits there, I'm not sure, being that it's California. But we really feel like the 900 is in line with what we're seeing other communities and other redevelopments doing. So we just wanted to present that as well for context. That's right, yeah, that's right.
One of the things I would recommend you dwell on a little bit is explaining these multi-family units, and you're touching on it now during the public meeting, and of course the phasing and sequencing of your construction, because the public likes to know how is this going to, first of all, look like, and then how long it's going to take. Is it going to be an inconvenience going in and out? I hear these questions, especially on the Georgia 400 Express lanes, which I happen to be working on some of that right now. People don't know how it's going to, like, how long is this taking? So some of the things that we like to really have a very clear understanding, within reason, of course, is your calculation of the multifamily units and phasing and sequencing. And I'm bringing this up because we have probably 2-3 minutes before we break. The grocery store is also something that I'd like to know what your plans are.
Bet.
Yeah. But you don't have to address all that now because you have plenty of time during the public meeting. We have no time limit. But I didn't want to encroach into the public meeting, and I want to give the board a break, 10 minutes between the workshop and the, so unless you have something you want to touch on, we can either do that for the next 3 minutes or wait until the public meeting. But if the board has a question they want to clarify, I'm open to going until 5 minutes before.
This isn't a question, just an observation about the mall is, you know, how do you, for you, to keep a sign there to say, hey, the mall's open, you know, because once those, as I was thinking about all the people that are going to be there, all the equipment that you're going to have to kind of tuck over in the corner, because once you start demoing the mall and going in, and it's like, you know, is that thing being torn down? No, is it even open anymore? You know, people driving by. I mean, that's just simply an observation of something to help you build up on something that's a positive for Alpharetta.
That's right, and actually that's something that we've been discussing as we get closer to true construction. It's a lot of it's about educating our customers in the community, pushing social media, also having great on-site signage. So customers understand when they're coming to the mall, they're going to know where they should park and where they should enter the mall, and doing that via signage, et cetera, to really make sure that we're taking care of our customers and they feel welcomed, and that it's not it doesn't feel like a construction zone. And that's, we understand that's a balance. It's something we deal with all the time with our projects in heavy redevelopment. And so that's everything from the on-site team to our marketing group in-house to make sure we're sending the right message to the community that we're open for business and come see us. That's a great question.
Well, ain't persistence. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's a great challenge.
I happened to go to Macy's not that long ago, not very often, but it's like, is this place still even open? So, and I'm not a shopper, so I'm not a good barometer of that kind of thing. But, you know, if you start having a bunch of construction vehicles and cranes and ripping down buildings for you, because this is a great asset that can really help and improve and build on Alpharetta. So we want you to succeed.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'll say I absolutely want to see it succeed, be the core. I'll be really brief, just as I can see the crux probably of questions tonight is going to be based upon probably that difference we're looking at of the new staff recommendations at 286 on a for sale. I think we're very consciously aware of how do you fit that many for sale units on your current design plan. I mean, obviously, I don't know what the 12 to 15 per acre, something like that. I mean, that's 20 acres. Challenge there is it goes back to design, and it's just going to be, is there a way to take a look at that? What is the flexibility and the optionality that you'll probably have to do that? And I think that'll just giving you, it's probably going to be the elephant in the room, and we're going to be talking about it.
You bet. Absolutely.
Otherwise, we'd love to see you guys succeed. So.
All right, well,
Great.
why don't we take a 10 minutes break, and then we'll get into a public meeting.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.